Chapter 8. The Elf Child and the Minister. Governor Bellingham, in a loose gown and easy cap, such as elderly gentlemen love to indulge themselves with in their domestic privacy, walked foremost and appeared to be showing off his estate, and expatiating in his projected improvements. The wide circumference of an elaborate roof banned his great beard in the antiquated fashion of King James's reign, caused his head to look not a little like that of John the Baptist in a charge. The impression made by his aspect, so rigid and severe, and frostbitten his more than ordinary age, was hardly in keeping with the appliances of worldly enjoyment wherewith he had evidently done his utmost to surround himself. But it is an error to suppose that our grave forefathers, though accustomed to speak and think of human existence as a state merely of trial in warfare, and thought unfeignedly prepared to sacrifice good and life at the behest of duty, made it a matter of conscience made a matter of conscience to reject such means of comfort, or even luxury, as lay fairly within their grasp. This creed was never taught, for instance, by the venerable Pastor John Wilson, whose beard, white as a snowdrift, was seen over Governor Bellingham's shoulder, while its wearer suggests that pears and peaches might yet be naturalized in the New England climate, and that purple grapes might possibly be compelled to flourish against the sunny garden wall. The old clergyman noted that the rich bosom of the English church had at length established a legitimate taste for all good and comfortable things, and however strong he might show himself in the pulpit, or in his public reproof of such transgressions as that of Hester Prynne, still the genial benevolence of his private life had won him warm affection that was according to any of his contemporaries. Behind the governor Mr. Wilson came two other guests, one the Reverend Arthur Dinsmore, whom the reader may remember as having taken a brief reluctant part in the scene of Hester Prynne's disgrace, and in close companionship with him old Roger Chillingworth, a person of great skill in physic, who for 2 or 3 years past had been settled in the town. It was understood that this learned man was the physician as well as friend of the young minister, whose health had severely suffered of late by his too unreserved self-sacrifice to the labours and duties of the pastoral relation. The governor, in advance of his visitors, ascended 1 or 2 steps, and throwing open the leaves of the great hall window, found himself close to little Pierre. The shadow of the curtain fell on Hester Prynne, and partly concealed her. "What have we here?" said Governor Bellingham, looking with surprise at the scarlet little figure before him. "I profess I have never seen the like, since my days of vanity in old King James's time, when I was wont to esteem it a high favour to be admitted to a court masque. There used to be a swarm of these small apparitions in holiday time, and we called them children of Lord of Misrule. But how got such a guest into my hall? I am dead," cried good old Mr. Wilson, What little bit of scarlet plumage may this be? Methinks I have seen just such figures, when the sun has been shining through a richly painted window and tracing out the golden and crimson images across the floor. But that was in the old land, pretty young one, who are two, and what has ailed thy mother to bedizen thee in this strange fashion? Art thou a Christian child, huh? Dost know the catechism, or art thou one of those naughty elves or fairies without whom we thought to have left behind us with other relics of papistry in merry old England? I'm a mother child answered the scarlet vision, and my name is Pearl. Pearl? Ruby rather, or coral, or red rose, at the very least, judging from the hue, responded the old minister, putting forth his hand in a vain attempt to pat little Pearl on the cheek. But where is this mother of thine? Ah, see, he added, in turning to Governor Bellingham whispered, this is the same child of whom we have held a speech together, and behold here the unhappy woman, Hester Prynne, her mother. Sayest thou so? Cried the Governor. Nay, we might have judged that such a child's mother must needs be a scarlet woman, and a worthy tithe of her of Babylon. But she comes at the good time, and we will look into this matter forthwith. Governor Bellingham stepped out the window into the hall, followed by his three guests. "Hester Prynne," said he, fixing his natural stern regard on the wearer of the scarlet letter, "there has been much question concerning thee of late. The point hath been widely discussed, whether we, that are of authority and influence, do well discharge our consciences by trusting in an immortal soul, such as there is yonder child, to the guidance of one who hath stumbled and fallen amid the pitfalls of this world. Speak to the child's own mother. Where is now, thinkest thou? For the little one's temporal and eternal welfare, that she be taken out of discharge, and clad thoroughly and disciplined strictly, and instructed in the truths of heaven and earth? What canst thou do for the child in this kind? I can teach my little Pearl what I have learned from this, answered Hester Prynne, laying her finger on the red token. Woman, it is thy bad "Badges of shame," replied the stern magistrate. "It is because of the stain which that letter indicates that we will transfer the child to other hands. Nevertheless," said the mother calmly, though growing more pale, "these badges had taught me, it delectates me, it teaching me at this moment, lessons whereof my child may be the wiser and better, albeit they can profit nothing to myself." "We will judge warily," said Bellingham, "and look well what we are about to do. Good Master Wilson, I pray you, examine this bird, since that is her name, and see whether she had such Christian nurture as befits a child of her age." The old minister seated himself in an armchair and made an effort to draw Pierre bedwith his knees. But the child, unaccustomed to the touch and familiarity of any but her mother, escaped through the open window and stood on the upper step, looking like a wild tropical bird of rich plumage ready to take flight into the upper air. Mr. Wilson noted a little attention at this outbreak, for he was grandfatherly a sort of personage, and usually a vast favourite with children. Essayed, however, to proceed with examination. "Pearl," said he, with great solemnity, "thou must take heed to instruction. That's so. In your season, to majesty wear in thy bosom the pearl of great price. Canst thou tell me, my child, who made thee?" No Pirate knew well enough who made her, for her sprang, the daughter of a piteous home, very soon after her walk with the child about her heavenly Father, had begun to inform her of those truths which the human spirit, at whatever stage of immaturity, embraces with such eager interest. But, therefore, so large were the attainments of her 3 years' lifetime, could have borne a fair examination in the New England Primer, or the first column of the Westminster Catechism. Although unacquainted with the outward form of either of those celebrated works, but that perversity which all children have more or less of, and of which little Pearl had a sensible portion, now at the most inopportune moment took thorough possession of her, and closed her lips, or impelled her to speak words endless. After putting her finger in her mouth, with many ungracious refusals to answer good Mr. Wilson's question, the child finally announced that she had not seen May at all, but had been plucked by her mother of the bush of wild roses that grew by the prison door. This fantasy was probably suggested by the near proximity of the garden of red roses, as Pearl stood outside of the window, together with her recollection of the prison rose-bush which she had passed in coming hither. Old Roger Chillingworth, with a smile on his face, whispered something in the young clergyman's ear. Hester Prynne looked at the man of skill, and even then, with her fate hanging in the balance, was startled to perceive what a change had come over his features, how much uglier they were, how his dark complexion seemed to have grown duskier, and his figure more misshapen, since the days when she had familiarly known him. She met his eyes for an instant, but was immediately constrained to give all her attention to this scene now going forward. "This is awful!" cried the Governor, slowly recovering from the astonishment into which Pearl's responses had thrown him. "Here is a child of 3 years old, and she cannot tell who made her. Without question, she is equally in the dark as to her soul, its present depravity and future destiny. Methinks, gentlemen, we need inquiry no further." Hester caught hold of Pearl, and drew her forcibly into her arms, confronting the old Puritan magistrate with almost a furious expression, allowing the word cast off by it, and with this sole treasure to keep her heart alive. She felt that she possessed indefensible rights against the world, and was ready to defend them to the death. "God gave me the child," cried she. "He gave her, in requital of those things else, which ye had taken from me. She is my happiness. She is my torture none the less. Pearl keeps me here in life, Pearl punishes me too. See you not, she is the scarlet letter, only capable of being loved, and so endowed with a millionfold the power of retribution for my sin? Yet I shall not take her. I will die first." "My poor woman," said the melancholy old minister, "this child shall be well cared for, far better than thou canst do it." "God gave her into my keeping," repeated Hester Prynne, raising her voice almost to a shriek. "I will not give her up." And here, by a sudden impulse, she turned to the young clergyman. Mr. Dinsdale, at whom up to this moment she had seemed hardly so much as asked to release her eyes. "Speak too for me," cried she. "Thou wast my pastor, and hast charmed my soul. and knows me better than this man can. I will not lose the child. Speak for me, you knowest, for thou hast sympathy with this man lack. You knowest what is in my heart, and what are the most rights, and how much the stronger they are when that mother has bathed her child in the scarlet letter. Look to it, I will not lose the child. Look to it. At this wild and singular appeal, which indicated that Hester's prime situation had provoked her to little less than madness, the young minister at once came forward, pale and holding his hand over his heart, as was his custom whenever his peculiarly nervous temperament was thrown into agitation. He looked now for calmer and emaciated than as we describe him at the scene of Hester's public ignominy, and whether it were his failing health, or whatever the cause might be, his large dark eyes had a world of pain in their troubled and melancholic depth. "There is truth in what she says," began the minister, with a voice sweet, tremulous but powerful, insomuch that the whole resounded and the hollow armour rang with it. "Truth in what Hester says, and in the feeling which inspires her. God gave her the child, and gave her, too, an instinctive knowledge of its natural requirements, both similar to peculiar, which no other mortal being can possess. And, moreover, is there not a quality of awful sacredness in the relation between this mother and this child?" "Ay, how is that, good Master Disley?" interrupted the governor. "Make that plain, I pray you." "It must be even so," resumed the minister, "for if we deem it otherwise, do we not thereby say that the Heavenly Father, the Creator of all flesh, has lightly recognized the deed of sin, and made of no account the distinction between unhallowed lust and holy love? This child of its father guilty in this marriage had come from the hand of God, to work in many ways upon her heart, who placed so earnestly and with such bitterness of spirit the right to keep her. It was meant for a blessing, for the one blessing of her life. It was meant, doubtless, as the mother herself had told us, for a retribution to, a torture to be felt at many an untold of moment, a pang, a sting, an ever-recurring agony in the midst of a troubled joy. Had she not expressed this thou in the garb of the poor child, so forcibly reminding us of that red symbol which sees her bosom? "Well said again," cried good Mr. Wilson. "I fear the woman had no more thought than to make a mountebank for her child. Or not so, not so," continued Mr. Disney. "She recognized, believe me, the solemn miracle which God had wrought in the existence of the child, and may she feel too, what metaphysics is very true, that this boon was meant above all things else, to keep the mother's soul alive, and to preserve her from blacker depths of sin into which Satan might else have sought to plunge her. Therefore it is good for this poor, simple woman that she had an infant immortal, ready at being capable of eternal joy or sorrow, confided to her care, to be treated up by her to righteousness, to remain her at every moment of her helpful, but yet to teach her, as it were by the Creator's sacred pledge, that bring if she brings the child to heaven, the child also will bring its parents thither. Herein is the sinful mother happier than the sinful father. For her step-brother's sake, then and no less for the poor child's sake. Let us live, then, as Providence had seen fit to place them. You speak, my friend, with a strange earnestness, said old Roger, Shillingworth, smiling at him, and there is weight in parting what my young brother had spoken, added Reverend Mr. Wilson. What say you, worshipful Master Bellingham? Had he not paid well for the poor woman? Indeed had he, answered the magistrate, and had adduced such arguments that we will even leave the matter as it now stands, so long, at least, as there shall be no further scandal in the woman. Care must be had, nevertheless, to put the child to do an state examination in the catechism at thy hands and Master Dinsdale. Moreover, at a proper season the teaching man must take heed that she go both to school and to marine. The young minister, on ceasing to speak, had withdrawn a few steps from the group, and stood with his face partially concealing the heavy folds of the window curtain, while the shadow of his figure, which the sunlight cast upon the floor, was tremulous with the vehemence of his appeal. But that Will and finally little Eve stole softly toward him, and taking his hand in the grasp of both her own, laid her cheek against it, a caress so tender and without so unobtrusive that her mother, who was looking on, asked herself, "Is that my pear?" Yet she knew that there was love in the child's heart, although it mostly revealed itself in patience, and hardly twice in her lifetime had been soothed by such gentleness as now. The minister, for, save the long sought regards of woman, nothing is sweeter than this mark of childish preference, accorded spontaneously by a spiritual instinct, and therefore seeming to imply in us something truly worthy to be loved. The minister looked round, laid his hand on the child's head, hesitated an instant, and then kissed her brow. Little bird, unwonted mood of sentiment lasted no longer. She laughed, and went capering down the hall, so early that old Mr. Wilson raised a question whether even her tiptoes touched the floor. The little baggage had witchcraft in her, I profess, said he to Mr. Disney. She needs no old woman's broomstick to fly withal. "A strange child," remarked old Roger Chillingworth. "It is easy to see the mother patting her. Would it be beyond a philosopher's research, think ye, gentlemen, to analyse the child's nature, and from its make and mould, to give a sure guess at the father? Nay, it would be sinful, in such a question, to follow the clue of profane philosophy," said Mr. Wilson, "bears too fast and prey upon it, and still better it may be, to leave the mystery as we find it, unless Providence reveal it of its own accord. Thereby every good Christian man had a title to show a father's kindness toward the poor, deserted babe. The affair being so satisfactorily concluded, Mr. Prime, with Pearl, departed from the house. As they descended the steps, Grace averred that the lattice of chamber window was thrown open, and for into the sunny day was thrust the face of Mistress Higgins, Governor Bellingham's very temperate sister, and the same who, a few years later, was was executed as a witch. "Hit, hit," said she, with her illumined physiognomy seeming to cast a shadow over the cheerful newness of the house. "Wilt thou go with us to-night? There will be a merry company in the forest, and I well nigh promise the black man that comely Hester Prynne shall make one. Make him an excuse to him, so please you," answered Hester, with a triumphant smile. "I must tarry at home, and I keep watch over my little pair. Had they taken her from me, I would willingly have gone with thee into the forest, and signed my name in the black man's book too, and that with mine own blood. We shall have thee there anon," said the witch lady, throwing in as she drew back her head. But here, if we suppose if we suppose this interview met with Mistress Hibis and Hester Prynne to be authentic, and not a fable, was already an illustration of the young minister's arguments against tolerating the relation of a fallen mother to the offspring of her frailty. Even thus early had the child saved her from Satan's snare.